Welcome, welcome. I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today. It is a busy time of year, and I know that your day is full, taking care of your clients, doing the things to be able to raise the bar as far as how you serve them, being able to really have that high touch type of firm. And want to just acknowledge the fact that you took time away from your busy day to join us. Being able to get that advanced move, that one insight that will go ahead and take your firm to the next level, working with high quality clients and being able to get paid fees that reflect the value of the services that you deliver. So that is my intention today, is that you get at least one action tip that you can immediately put into place in order to earn more and have your fees reflect your value. So today's topic is stop competing on price, confidently answer the what's your hourly rate question. Okay, you're talking to someone, they reach out to you, and one of the first questions is so often, what's your hourly rate? I want to let you know that answering that too soon actually backfires. And we'll get into more of why that happens and how that happens as we go through today's training. If you are an accounting professional and you wonder if your prices are too low, or possibly that you would love to charge more, but you feel that all your clients are price sensitive and that you end up offering discounts or negotiating your fees to bring on a new client, then you are absolutely in the right place today. Steve, please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Loren, I'd love to. So hi, my name's Steve Fogelman. As you can see by the last name, Loren and I are related. We have been married and working together for quite a number of years. I'm a therapist turned business coach. I'm going to be your co-host today, and I will also be working the chat. So as we go through and do our poll questions, if you have a question for Loren, please get it through to me on the chat, and I'll be sure to get that over to Loren so that she can answer that question for you. Loren, back to you.
Thank you. Now, some of you know me already, and some of you are meeting me for the first time. So just a little bit of background. I'm a sports psychologist turned business coach. And what I have found is that my education prepared me for what I do really, really well. However, it also trained me to be an employee working for someone else instead of a business owner, because that there were three gaps that I had to fill. One is how to communicate my values so that I was attracting those quality clients to me. The second one is how to price my services when I didn't want to connect my fees to time. And the third one was how to enroll those quality clients when I didn't want to be salesy. I don't want to pressure someone into working with me, but we all have to agree that in order to have a business, we need clients. So how to be able to do that when I didn't really like the sales part. And that's what I found a lot of the accounting professionals that I work closely with benefit from also, is communicating value, how to price your services, and also enroll clients without being salesy. As you can see, from 2018 to 2022, I've been named as one of the top 22 business coaches by HubSpot. And that is my Amazon #1 bestseller, The Success Solution. The domino effect happens when you're having that meeting or someone's getting ready to schedule an appointment with you, they reach out to you, and the very first thing that they want to know is what you charge, what are your fees, how much is this going to cost me? That's like one of the first things that comes up so often. And as a result of that, we have this like knee-jerk response where we go ahead and share our fees. We feel obligated to do that and respond to them. It's just being respectful. You're very client-centered. But when you do that too soon, then they're going to make a quick judgment about you. And it actually positions you more as a technician focusing on the client side of what you do than seeing you as an expert and someone that can help them navigate the financials regarding their business journey. So once again, it has this domino effect, this snowball effect. They ask the hourly rate question, you respond, they immediately judge you as a technician, and they're making a quick decision as to whether they ought to move forward and work with you or not. So that is something to think about, and why I am not an advocate of answering that too quickly. So what we're going to cover today is the rate question, what's behind the question, and your confident response. I will absolutely give you as much as I possibly can in our short period of time together today. If you're interested in knowing more, I will show you how to follow up with that as we wrap up things today.
Well, Loren, what are the steps to increase income without working additional hours?
So basically, it's from the 5 steps of the Raise Your Rates formula, which is what I teach to my clients. And the very 5 steps, even if you take the essence of them, will help you be able to work with higher quality clients and be firmly on the road to having a dream firm. So the very first thing is recognizing who those high value clients are, because in the beginning, you are accepting everybody. You need the cash flow. You need the validation that this was a good decision for you. But you realize over time that some clients are a dream to work with and some clients stress you out. So we want to be able to understand who those quality clients are for you to attract more of them into your firm. And that leads right into number 2, which is communicate your value. That is having the words, whether it's on your website, whether it is on a social media posting, at an in-person networking event where someone casually asks you what it is that you do, to be able to have the right words to grab the attention of the right people that want to know more and want to be able to have a further conversation with you. Number 3 is packaging your services. This is where you are able to start charging more and earning more. Clients become more profitable because you're now separating your fees from time and taking that long a la carte laundry list of all the different things that you do and putting them into packages or bundles and separating your fees from time. And that goes right into number 4, which is value pricing. It is what we're taking a deeper dive into today, how to be able to earn 2 to 3 times more than what your hourly rate might be, because clients are investing in the value that they benefit from working with you, and that is different than pricing your services according to your time and costs. And then number 5 is what I call consultation mastery. If you don't like the sales part, especially the part where you're talking about your fees and trying to close someone, then this is where you ask great questions. And as a result of that, at the end of the conversation, they naturally ask, how does this work? And that is when you can invite them to move forward. So those are the 5 steps of the Raise Your Rates formula: is high value clients, communicate your value, package your services, value pricing, and consultation mastery.
And Lauren, out of those 5 questions, I think the one about communicating your value was probably the most important, because that kind of sets the stage. I like that question. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing that we're going to look at is the rate question. But before we do that, we have our first poll. How do you charge your clients? Do you charge hourly rate, flat fee, value pricing, or a combination? Once again, how do you charge your clients? Hourly rate, flat fee, value price, or a combination? And like I said, while we launched the poll, this is a great time to put a question into the chat, and I'll be able to get that question over to Loren so that she can answer the question during our time today. Mm-hmm. And so once again, how do you charge your clients? Hourly rate, flat fee, value price, or a combination? And let's see, we're going to go ahead and end the poll. Is that correct, Loren?
Yep, go for it.
Okay, so hourly rate, 27%, flat fee, 9%, value price, 18%, combination is 45%. Great. Well, you talked about an anchor. I don't see the anchor. Oh, there's the anchor. What do you want to do first before sharing your rates? So what's the first thing that you do?
Well, this is actually based on neuroscience and how adults actually make decisions. We first need to realize that we're not very good at making decisions when there's only one choice or one option. What we do is we actually need to compare things in order to make a decision. It's why a lot of times you might research something and you might actually find yourself stuck in the research mode, looking at all the different options available for solving your problem before you decide to move forward. And when it comes to working with a client and you discuss, you're in that initial consultation, you're discussing how to be able to move forward, then you want to look at the fact that once again, we make decisions by comparison. If you, and so the anchor effect is that whatever number you throw out first, we're going to compare your fees to that number that you throw out first. That is the anchor effect. So even if it's not a related type of number, it doesn't matter. That's just how our brains work. If you can throw out the back of someone's football jersey number and then tell them your fees, and they're going to just go ahead and naturally compare your fees to that number that you told them. So you want to be very, very intentional about what numbers you're sharing first before you state your fees, because that's how they're going to gauge whether your fees are a deal or if they're too high for them. So an example is if you throw out a low number, let's say the back of that football jersey of $42, and then you tell them your fees are so much per month or so much for getting a tax return filed, then they're going to see that particular number as being high because it's going to be more than $42. So that's something to think about, a low number, and then you share your number, and they're going to see your number as being too high, being expensive. Why? And they're going to wonder, why are you charging me that much? If you now throw out a high number first and then share your fees, they will then see your value as a great deal and they ought to move forward. An example of that would be sharing how much revenues they want to achieve over the next year, or how much you can help them with tax savings if you're able to work with them closely on planning and strategy. So if you're sharing those numbers and then you're telling them your fees, they will see the value of moving forward and working with you. Therefore, I'm telling you this, be very intentional. It's part of how we make decisions, is whatever number you share first, they're going to compare to what your fees are. And based on whether it's a number that's lower or higher than your fees, they'll decide whether you're getting, whether they're paying too much or whether your fees are a great deal.
Well, when you share your rates too quickly, it really overlooks other critical factors. What are some of the missing pieces that we're overlooking?
Well, something to think about is that we want to be client-centered, and we care about our clients. Especially when we're meeting someone for the first time, we want to go ahead and answer their questions. And sometimes that ends up going sideways into a pick your brain session instead of a consult, because you lose control of the conversation. But when they're asking what your fees are and you're answering too quickly, then it's not really giving them context about what that means. And an example of that is thinking about Susan, who just left the firm that she was working for the last 5 years, and she is now charging $50 an hour. And to her, $50 an hour seems like a great amount to charge compared to what she was earning when she was working for that accounting firm. So she charges $50 an hour, but Susan's a little bit slow because she's a perfectionist and she checks things over 2 and 3 times before she feels really comfortable that everything is really up to her specs. Because that it takes her a little bit longer to do the work, and she really hasn't been in the accounting field for that long. So basically, she charges $50 an hour. And then you have Tom, who's been in the accounting field for 20 years. He's had his own firm for the last 8 years. He's brought in technology because he's tech savvy, and he has certain processes in place so that he can do things very efficiently, and he's really fast at what he does. So he charges $75 an hour for his work. And say that you have a client now that is talking to Susan and talking to Tom as well. This client's going to hear that Susan charges $50 an hour and that Tom charges $75 an hour. But what if Susan takes 6 hours to do the work for this client, which means that this client will be paying $300 a month, and Tom only takes 3 hours, half the time? That means that the client will be paying Susan at $50 an hour, $300 a month, and that client would be paying Tom at $75 an hour, but he only does the work in 3 hours, which would be $225 a month. So if you're just sharing your hourly rate, that is an example of how it has no context, because it doesn't really show how fast you are, or the technology, or the fact that you've been doing this for a long time. So you have certain processes and expertise that you bring to the table. And that's why I feel that sharing your hourly rate too soon actually backfires, because there's just no context about it. We're not making a decision based on anything specific. And this was true for Karen also. She is very, very client-centered and generous with her clients, but she also had low rates because she felt uncomfortable with sharing them, and she felt that her clients were price sensitive and wouldn't pay higher fees. But what that meant is that she was working a lot of hours. She was doing a lot of work herself that she didn't delegate to her staff, even though she had a staff. And as a result of that, it capped her earnings and her revenues. So what we did was start to separate her fees and time by creating those packages or bundles, and then be more familiar on the value of working with her, instead of just looking at the time of how much time someone gets for her services. And this is what we created together, was her packages. She specializes with law firms and attorneys, so her packages are geared toward their specific needs. But we created a silver, gold, and platinum. And as a result of this, she was able to share the 3 different options of how to work with her, and clients can look at which one was the best fit for them and actually move forward. So now they weren't hiring her for how much time she was going to be working on their particular account. They were hiring her because she was able to deliver a specific result that was important to them.
Well, let's move forward, Loren. So what's behind the question? And before we actually get to that, let's do our next poll. So rate your pricing confidence. I'm highly satisfied with my rates. I'm afraid to raise my rates. I get paid a little and I work a lot. Once again, rate your pricing confidence. Highly satisfied with my rates, afraid to raise my rates, get paid a little, and I work a lot. And Loren, I do have a question that came in, unless you
Did you
saw
see
one
Glenn's
before.
question?
I did not. So
So
why don't you
Glenn
go
was
for
asking,
it?
what do you say when they ask, what is your hourly rate? You have said not tell them right away. And that is true. I will go further into that in this section, actually, on how to be able to answer that, so that you're answering and responding to them, but you don't have to actually share your hourly rate right off the bat.
Great. So once again, rate your pricing confidence, highly satisfied with my rates, afraid to raise my rates. I get paid a little and I work a lot. And we can go close the poll. Very interesting. So 30% are highly satisfied with their rates. 30% are afraid to raise their rates, and 40% get paid a little and they work a lot.
And I just want to say,
Loren,
if anybody else has questions, please go ahead and either let Steve know, or put it in the chat, or send me a direct message, because I am so happy to answer your specific questions.
Great. Well, earlier you mentioned that people were taught to ask about an hourly rate. Let's talk about what's really behind that hourly rate question.
I think as a culture, it's something that we're taught to ask. We've all probably have asked it of somebody at some point, because it lets us know whether it's within our budget, if this is someone that might be an option for solving our problems. And it does help us, it does inform us. But what they actually want to know, they just don't realize what it is that they really want to know. What they really want to know is, can they trust you to deliver on what they're hiring you to do? And what is it like working with you? So those are the 2 things behind the hourly rate question that they really want to know, and they just don't know to ask it in that way. But what they need to figure out is actually, can they trust you to deliver on what they're hiring you to do? So that means, do you have the skill set? Do you have the software available in order to be able to follow through? Will you do it in a timely manner? And then the other part of it is what it's like to work with you. Are you more of a factory style firm where you just work with a lot of clients and it's one after another and you don't have time to talk to anybody? Or are you very, very client centered where you invest time, you know your clients, you get to really understand what's important to them, and it is very, very relational. So that is something to think about, and you might be somewhere on that spectrum between factory and client-centered and relational, but that's a big part of what you want to consider is that the more that you focus on a client relationship and you follow through on what it is that they're hiring you to do, those clients are less price sensitive. The only ones who prioritize price and will demand that they won't even talk to you any further until you answer that hourly rate question is the ones that are price sensitive. So that is something to think about, is the ones who are price sensitive won't talk to you any further. And I'm going to let you know is if you end up with a price sensitive client, they usually become a headache anyway, because they want champagne services at beer prices. They want to pay as little as possible and get as much as possible. So if we can go ahead and actually save you from that, then it actually saves room for you to have a client that actually values you and respects you moving into your firm and working closely with you.
And Loren, Antoinette had a question for you. Do you see it in the chat?
Yeah. Antoinette, do you want to mute yourself and ask me your question?
Yes, I did put it in a chat, but if you quote a client an hourly rate, and then they ask you to come down, let's say by $5, and if you said, okay, even though, I might charge a little more just in case that happens, what do the client think if you say yes and lowered that rate by that $5? Do they think ill of you, or you think they appreciate it more?
It's a little bit of yes to everything. The very first thing to know is that some people are just price sensitive and that they have a rule, they will always ask for a discount. So those are the people that I see and I call poker players. Is that person might have paid a full fee, but they just have a rule, they always ask for a discount because sometimes they get it. So that is something to think about. And if we're talking about a small amount like $5, they probably would have paid your full fee anyway. But once again, they're just seeing if they can get a better fee. So that is another thing to think about. And the other part is if you're going to lower your rates, then I believe you ought to take away some service also, because negotiation isn't about just one person giving something in order to move forward and the other person just gets it all. It's about if you're going to make some adjustment to your fees, then you should make some adjustments to your services accordingly, because otherwise you're teaching that client that your rates are suggestions as opposed to firm offers. And if you do it a first time, you're teaching them to negotiate with you every single time you're moving forward with you. So it's really reinforcing a bad habit.
Okay. Is it okay to say, unfortunately, I can't lower the rate?
Well, I think that if you're going to have if I want to book a seat on an airline, I can't negotiate with the air.
Do they have clients and I don't?
If I want to book a call on an airline, I'm unable to negotiate the price of that seat. I might put a price watch on it if I really wanted to, but if it was really important for me to book it on that airline and that flight, I'm booking it at that rate because that has more value to me than maybe saving $10 on the seat. So I'm going to let you know that you need to decide what your value is first. This is where you need to connect with your value before you can expect someone else to realize the value that you offer.
Well, Loren, we're talking about the need.
So hold on one second.
Oh,
Antoinette, I want to just make sure that you're good.
Oh, yes. You answered my question perfectly and then some. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, Steve, you're on.
Okay. So we're talking about the need to compare. How does that work when it comes to hiring an accounting firm?
Well, as I was mentioning earlier when I was talking about the anchor effect, is that we make decisions based on comparisons and judgment. It's just how our brains are wired. And before I was talking about a number and comparing one number to the other, but the other thing to look at is when you are looking at working with a client and you're giving them a proposal, a lot of times you just give them one option of working with you, and either they say yes to that option or they move on to some other alternative. So it's a yes and no decision pretty much. But if you are able to start packaging your services and you're giving them different options, then they're thinking about how to work with you and which option is a best fit for them, as opposed to if they ought to work with you or move on to some other choice. It also recognizes the fact that not all clients have the same exact needs and not all in the same place in their business journey, and that you want to have some options available that might meet the different needs of your different clients. So once again, it's similar to a vehicle. If you go on the highway and you are driving, not everybody is driving the same exact make and model as you are. There's a wide variety of vehicles. Some people might want just the basics, and they want that compact vehicle with the roll-up windows, and you have to manually put down the door locks, no seat warmers, and no rear view camera for backing up. And then there's other people, the majority of people are going to have some type of mid-sized car that has certain amenities, it has certain safety features, and those things are important to them, having comfort with their driving and safety, as well as just having the ability to get from their house to that particular meeting or destination. And then there's a certain amount of people that want that luxury experience, and that they feel that it is worth the value of being able to drive in comfort and have all the top features, the seat warmers, the rear view backup camera, the steering wheel warmers, if they're living in a cold environment, and that they want all the amenities because that's important to them. And those people doing it because the experience is important, but also maybe it's someone who is operating their business from their car, and that it needs to be something where they can still operate their business, but do it in a safe manner. So that's something to think about with your clients also, is that they come into you with different needs and different outcomes. They're in different places of their business journey. And instead of having one option that they either say yes to or they move on, you want to give them some things to compare, because now they're thinking about how to work with you as opposed to if they want to work with you. And when we're talking about value pricing and starting to separate your fees and time, this is the essence of it, is the client needs to believe that what they have to gain from working with you is greater than the fees that they are paying you. And I'll go ahead and say that once again. The client needs to believe that what they have to gain from working with you is greater than the fees that they are paying you. And that is the essence of value pricing. And with Devin, she had someone come to her around May of 2020, after all the businesses were shut down, most people were not back in their office. And this particular agency had everything on a server in the office, which meant that they weren't operational. And every week that they weren't able to serve their clients, they were hemorrhaging tens of thousands of dollars on a weekly basis because of the type of business that she was working with. And they reached out to her because they knew that it was so important to get their business out of that server and onto the cloud in order to be up and running again. So what she did is she looked at what they need as far as their accounting needs were, including getting them onto the cloud and then being able to manage their accounting on a monthly basis in order for them to be able to have the best profit margin possible, have the best insights into their business operations, and be able to hit their revenue goals, even though they were now working virtually instead of in person. She said before we started looking at packaging her services and value pricing, she probably would have charged $5,000 for the entire project of getting them onto the cloud and a year's worth of bookkeeping. But because she was able to assess the client based on their needs and what was a value to them, she went ahead and priced the entire project, including the years of services, for $40,000. As a result of that, she followed the formula that I teach, and they actually said yes and paid her in full upfront before she even started the project, because that is part of what I taught her to do also. Well, this influx of cash allowed her to bring on a part-time assistant full-time. Because she was able to now bring this assistant on full-time, she can get some things off of her plate onto this assistant's place. And with that free time, she was able to focus more on the higher level consultancy, advisory services, as well as business development. And just think about what it would be for you if you were able to bring someone on to your team because you had the cash flow to do that, and that your fees reflected the value instead of the time spent doing work for clients.
Well, Loren, before we get into the next section, which is your confident response, I did see a question from Patricia. Do you see that question in the chat? Because I think it's pretty relevant. Do you want to go ahead and answer that?
Patricia, do you want to ask your question real quickly? Anyway, it sounds like with Patricia, what she wanted to know is with the 40,000, did it happen during the initial interview, or did she have time to think about it? What happened is that she followed a particular process that I teach, where she did a paid diagnostic, where she looked at all their financials, as well as getting them up to the cloud. By doing that, she was able then to give them a fee for the project and what that investment would be based upon her findings. And that's when they said yes to moving forward, and they paid her in full. So she was able to follow what I teach, which is doing a paid diagnostic review, which lets her really get in and dig into their financials and what their needs are, so that she's doing the work correctly and getting them set up correctly. It avoids the scope creep issue that happens when you're doing a project, where you find that there's things you didn't realize and that you actually underpriced it. And that's what process she was able to follow before she went ahead and gave them that fee.
Great. We actually skipped through, so I'm not sure.
Did I miss something, Steve?
Yeah, just go back.
Let me go back.
There you go. So
Okay, there, thank you.
So what we're going to be looking at next is your confident response. But before we do that, we have our next poll question. Now we can go forward. Do you confidently communicate your value? It's something I struggle with. There's room for improvement. I've mastered my message. Once again, do you confidently communicate your value? It's something I struggle with. There's room for improvement. I've mastered my message. And while we do that, I do have a question. What if I don't have an hourly rate? Then what's the best response?
Right, because as we saw with the first poll, not everybody did have an hourly rate. And what you want to do is, and this goes back to Glenn's question also, we'll dig into it a little bit further here, is that you want to let them know that you are going to meet with them, you want to have a consultation with them, and that based on that, then you can let them know what the fee would be for working together. So it's not that you need to answer the hourly rate question with sharing an hourly rate. It's more that you need to acknowledge their question and let them know that you have a specific procedure in place before you can share that information with them.
Right. So do you confidently communicate your value? It's something I struggle with is 33%. There's room for improvement is 58%. I've mastered my message is actually 8%. Great.
Perfect.
And Loren, before we get into the final section where you're going to discuss what to do when someone wants to know your hourly rate, which we've been talking about, I know that you have a resource that I think would be helpful. Why don't you talk about that?
Basically, this is the entire focus of the masterclass today, and it's what I'm going to be going deeply into this next section here, is how to confidently answer that question. If you want the resource, go to businesssuccesssolution.com/answer, and you can grab the template that gives you all the steps on how to be able to confidently answer that question, what are some of the things to consider when that comes up, and how to really connect with your value so that clients really see the benefit of engaging your firm's services instead of going with some other option. And once again, that's at businesssuccesssolution.com/answer.
Well, what if someone keeps insisting that you give them an hourly rate and they really stay pretty firm to that?
Yeah, well, I think that first of all, if someone is really insisting, they are probably price sensitive for the most part. Maybe they have a certain budget. They want to make sure that they don't go above that budget. But as I was saying before, as I shared about Susan and Tom, just sharing an hourly rate doesn't have any context around it. So it's not really something that's going to let them know whether you will be within their budget or not, regardless of what your hourly rate is. What you want to think about is how you want to answer that. And the way to answer that is to let them know that I meet with clients first, then we see what your needs are. And based on that, I will then talk about what it would be like to move forward together. So if you want the exact words, you can just say a script. I don't work on an hourly rate. And my projects are based the fees for my projects are based on results, and I'll only discuss the price if I can solve this for you. So once again, I don't work on an hourly rate. The fees for my projects or my services are based on results, and we can meet to see if I can meet those needs. And if I feel that I can, then we can discuss what the fees would be moving forward. So that is a word for word script. You can take that and run with it. You can maybe use it for inspiration and come up with your own. I think the essence of this, though, is if you come up with actually a script of how you want to respond, even if it's just one sentence, then you're going to be in a better position to actually respond in that way, very intentionally, instead of just having that knee-jerk domino effect of quickly responding with your hourly rate.
Well, once you give them that answer, what's next?
Well, this is where you want to think about that auto mechanic strategy. It's similar to what Patricia was asking regarding Devin of how did she come up with $40,000? And this is the overall way of being able to look at that. When you have a vehicle that needs some attention, you're going to go ahead and bring it into your mechanic. Your mechanic will lift up the hood and put his or her head under the hood and check around things, maybe put some clamps on things for diagnostic. And then that allows you, the mechanic, to next talk to you about what it is that needs to be done and making a prescription of what those next steps would be. You agree to the next steps, and then your mechanic moves forward and does the work. So that is the essence of what you want to think about for yourself, is having that same procedure. And it's really more or less an onboarding procedure in place in order for you to work with those higher quality clients who aren't just price sensitive. So once again, you want to do some type of assessment to really scope things out on your own. I encourage you to have a paid diagnostic as opposed to doing a quick review of their books during your initial consult. It's something that I teach in the profitable cleanup formula, is the exact process to do that. And then after you do the paid diagnostic, or you continue to do your free one, then you want to make your recommendations. But you're able to make better recommendations when you're able to do the diagnostic on your own and you're being compensated for doing that. So you do that diagnostic, then you go through your recommendations. You can tell them what needs to be done. You can go ahead and give the investment for doing that particular work as well. And then if they agree to it, you move forward and you get the work done. One of the things I do want to say, because I know that you are very client-centered, is if you're doing a paid diagnostic, hold yourself back from making any changes or going ahead and doing any work because you haven't been given permission to do that yet. You haven't been paid or compensated for making those changes. You're just being paid to assess what their needs are and to give them that insight and information. And then once you go through that with them and you get agreement, then you can go ahead and start to actually do all the work. So that's the auto mechanic strategy, is assess, prescribe, and then you get permission to move forward and do the work. The other thing to look at is when you're meeting with clients, I want you to be seen as the expert. I want you to take charge. So you need to decide how you are going to answer the what's your hourly rate question. And the simplest way to actually do that is to let them know, what I do is I offer free consultation. And during that time, we can talk about what your needs are so I can get a better understanding of what it is that I can do and if I can actually help you. So you want to have a prepared answer as to what it is you're going to say when they ask about your hourly rate. And once again, I would rather you take someone and drive them into that free initial consult with you to where you can understand and assess what their needs are before you share what your prices are, because of the fact that if you're not charging for your time, then you can charge a flat fee and you'll get a better understanding as to what that fee would be. So that is something to think about. Is just, you could say something as simple of, let's first talk about your needs, or you could say something like, I offer a free consultation to meet with you and understand exactly what it is that you need before we discuss the next steps moving forward. The next step of this would be, okay, they're reaching out to you. They're interested in whether you can help them or not. You want to get something scheduled on the calendar. So get that meeting scheduled on the calendar, whether it's an in-person meeting, a phone meeting, a virtual meeting, whatever it is, get something scheduled on the calendar instead of just quickly giving them your hourly rate. And then after that, when you're meeting with them, you want to ask great questions. This is actually not a time to pitch or sell your services. You can do a lot of the teaching and education about what it's like to work with you before you have this meeting. And by being able to have a process in place that educates them about how you work with clients, what you can do for them a little bit, then when you're having that meeting, you can really just focus primarily on them and what their needs are, and really have it be a very client-centered, engaging conversation. So some of the things you want to think about when you're meeting with them is understanding what it is that they want to achieve, where the things are now regarding their business. So you're understanding what it is that they want to achieve and where they are now. So that means that there's a gap between those two things. What are any concerns they might have that would keep them from achieving that result? Do they have any frustrations because of the fact that they feel stuck and they can't move forward? And another one, and this is an advanced move I'm sharing with you, is you want to ask them, what would be the cost of continuing to tolerate things and not do anything about it? So those are some things you want to ask, and it focuses all on them. Now, there's some things you might need to ask also about transactions or bank account, the fundamental things. But I want you to ask these advanced questions that focus on them, because now you're having a different conversation than they're having with everybody else. It shows that you're very client-centered. It shows that you have the insights and the expertise to really understand them and their needs. As a result of that, they're gaining trust in you by sharing these things with you, and this makes them less price sensitive. So that's some of the things to think about, is by asking great questions that focus on them and what's top of mind to them and of value to them. They become less price sensitive, and it's not as much about your hourly rate any longer. Patricia was asking, based on the assessment, do you give them a list of suggestions to delve into what they need? That is one aspect that you could do when you're meeting with them, is you can give them the list, you can give them a report. There's other options that I go into more about during the course, the profitable cleanup formula, which I don't really have time to dive into today. But yes, you could give them a list, because when you do that paid diagnostic assessment, it is actually a standalone product, and it allows you to determine whether you're a good fit for working with each other. Do you like working with this person? Do you want to continue forward with them or not? And it also allows them to determine whether working with you is a good fit or not for them as well, before they move forward into a longer engagement or a larger investment with you. So it lets the two of you test drive working together before you move forward, and giving them the insights into what needs to be done to get their financials up to speed is actually a standalone product. So getting back to this is, after you have met with someone, you have let them know that you want to do a consultation, you've scheduled the meeting, you've met with them, and you're asking these great questions, then the next part is sharing the solution. And the solution, from my point of view, is looking at not just the tasks and the workflows. I want to let you know that actually when you go into too much of the details, you actually overwhelm them. You lose the connection with them because they don't understand what's required to get their financial up to speed to the same degree as you do. And the more you go into the details that you geek out over, because this is what you do all day, every day. This is what you speak the language, but they don't speak the same language as you do. So if you go too much into the details, you will actually lose connection with them. They'll overwhelm them, and it'll be hard for them to make a decision. So what you want to do when it comes to sharing the solution is you really want to focus on helping them solve their problem and what result you're going to be able to help them achieve based on the goals that they told you in the meeting. And you want to really focus more on showing them that you can solve their problem and that you have the expertise and tools to do that. And you just want to emphasize a small aspect of what actually needs to be done, the tactical steps to be able to do that. So if you go too much in the tactical parts of it, you lose the connection, you overwhelm them. They just want to tune out, and it really focuses more on you being seen as a technician as opposed to an expert. So once again, focus more on the benefits and the outcomes to them of you doing this work for them and solving their challenges and what would be like in order to have their challenges solved by you, as opposed to focusing too heavily on the exact task that you would be doing. The next thing you want to think about is offering options, because as I mentioned, this is how our brains work, is we need to compare options when we're making a decision. We don't do very well when there's just one option and we don't have any other information. And that's why I encourage you to offer 3 options of how to work together, with having a silver, gold, and a diamond package, as opposed to working with just one option. And then they're thinking about whether to work with you or move on in some other direction. So basically, when you're offering 3 packages, you have the silver, which is the very basics that they need to be tax ready and compliant. The gold will be for business owners that want more insights into their business and might want some other things regarding their financials in order to make better decisions regarding their in order to make better decisions with their business. So they want the insights to be able to help them with decision making. And then the diamond is more of outsourced CFO level services for those clients that have more complex businesses. Maybe they have several businesses, and they want you to mainly be their outsourced accounting department. So those are the things to think about. Is now you're going to offer 3 options, and then they can decide how they want to work with you, as opposed to just giving them one option in a proposal, and then they're deciding if they want to work with you or move on with some other option. So I just wanted to ask you if anybody has any questions. I just want to check in. I have a little bit of time. Does anybody have any questions that they want to ask so that I can clarify something for you? And Nina was asking if there was going to be a replay. I am recording it. If it looks good and sounds good, I plan on offering it. If it's not really good and it's not a great recording, I probably won't do it. So it just makes sure that we're engaged. It's a great replay recording, and then I will go ahead and give you that. So Antoinette said, thank you once again for the information. Patricia said, everything's great so far. So Nina's like, it's good, excellent. And once again, if you have a question, please let me know. Oh, Larry asked, how do you create urgency for them? The way to create urgency is when you're first meeting with them, you want to go ahead and understand why they reached out to you, because most people do not reach out to change or get on board with an accounting firm just because they had a whim. There's some reason why they decided to reach out to you. So you want to be able to ask them what it was that made them want to reach out to you and have a conversation with you. That's going to give you some insights into what that urgency is. Maybe they got a letter from the IRS that they're going to be audited, or they need to get all their financials tax ready because they haven't touched them for the whole year and nothing is prepared, or possibly that they are looking to apply for a line of credit and they need to have their financial report spotless in order to be able to put in their application. So different things for different people. So you want to find out what that urgency is. That's one aspect. The other way to create urgency is when you're giving them a proposal, don't leave it open-ended for them to think about it for a long period of time. You want to put some deadline or timeline around them making a decision. It might be a week, it might be 30 days, but I want to have you create some timeline in order for them not to think about it for the next 3 months and then they come back to you a year later. So that's my thoughts is create a timeline, find out why they reached out to you also. And the other part of it is when you understand the gap between where they are and where they want to be, each month that they are not at that revenue goal that they want, they are just losing money. So that is a part of the urgency also, is that you want to help them close that gap as quickly as possible to achieve their revenue goals. With Susan, once again, doesn't like talking about the fees of what she charges. As a result of that, she charged a lower than average rate for her services. She also was a perfectionist, so she made sure that everything was very high up to her standards. And she always underestimated the project 100% of the time. So what we did is she had someone come to her that wanted her to do a cleanup. I want to bring your attention to cleanup number 1. She would have originally estimated about how much time she thought it would take based on her hourly rate, done that math, and she always underestimated, but she would have charged $1,500 for that particular project. We had a quick conversation about the value from the client's point of view, their urgency to be able to get this done as quickly as possible, because not having accurate insights was affecting their business development and business decisions. And as a result of that, she went ahead and proposed $7,900 for the project. No additional time spent working. Because she was following the Raise Your Rates formula, she also knew how to ask for them to pay upfront for that particular project. Now, I want to let you know, Susan wasn't confident going through this conversation with them. She was shaking in her boots. She was very, very nervous, but she had the courage to do it because she was working 7 days a week, 70 hours a week. She was burned out. The way that she was managing her firm was no longer sustainable. Something had to change. So she followed the formula. They said yes. They paid her upfront. And that gave her insights that her clients weren't as price sensitive as she thought they were. And she started to go ahead and raise her fees and get her current clients up to her new fees too. As a result of that, over the course of 9 months, she brought in an additional $56,000 in revenue, but she also stopped working the 7 days a week, 70 hours a week. She cut back to 3 days a week, 20 hours a week. So an additional $56,000 in revenue, and she started working half-time. So think about what that would do for you if you were able to increase your revenues and also decrease your workload and get back your personal time. So once again, Steve, I think that you're on.
Well, what we covered today was the rate question, what's behind the question, and then your confident response. And I know that you really shared a lot today. And now I think that they can go ahead and get started. But I think there are some that are ready to get this done and they don't want to figure this out on their own. What do you recommend for those clients, for those listeners who are ready to define a niche and also attract those high value clients?
Well, I think the very first thing is that I believe that you can charge more than what you currently are. I've seen it over and over and over again. It's not that you don't want to raise your rates, but sometimes you just don't know how to do it and you get afraid of losing clients. And because that fear, you stay stuck where things are, or maybe you raise the rates with your new clients and your legacy clients stay where they are because you don't want to rock the boat and lose those clients. You have a relationship with them. And so one of the things that I look at is not just having your prices reflect your fees with new clients, but we also look at how to get your current clients up to your new rates. If that is something that interests you, it's been on your mind for a long time, you've been wanting to do it, maybe you've dabbled in it, but really haven't gotten the results that you know you can, then I put aside some time for a complimentary path to profit strategy session. It is a dedicated conversation where we focus on you, what it is you want to achieve, and how to be able to go ahead and get that dialed in. If that feels like that resonates with you and you took some value away from our short period of time together today, then please go to businesssuccesssolution.com/let's talk to get that opportunity going. It does have a $500 value, but it is complimentary because I love having these conversations and I want to make sure that it is something that I can actually help you with. So once again, if that interests you, businesssuccesssolution.com/let's talk. I just want to acknowledge you for taking time away from working in your business. I know that you're very busy. Joining me today to work on your business, getting that one tip you can immediately implement, that insight that you can go ahead and put into practice right away to raise the bar of the clients that you work with and put you squarely on the path to having your dream firm. Thank you so much. Talk to you soon. Take care. Bye.